making me part of this program. I was at GP Angoli from 2012 to 2019, and therefore I know the infrastructure, etc., which we have already developed there, and we have made this polytechnic to achieve this position of at national level within few years. So let us start with this topic today. Are you able to see my screen? Hello?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, right. So thank you very much for very elaborate introduction given by Professor Samleti sir. The topic given to me is entrepreneurship, historical background and present scenario. Today we find that entrepreneurship is much talked about. Today's scenario is such that we cannot provide employment to each and every person, and therefore the only solution for this is entrepreneurship. Now, to look into this matter, we have kept this FDP program keeping in view that the teachers will be benefited and they will be in a position to teach the students in such a fashion that most of the students go for the entrepreneurial setup of their own. And therefore, we need to know how the entrepreneurship developed at the world level as well as at the national level, and what is the historical background of that, so that we can get benefit from this and present this to the students. The contents which I have kept for this lecture are: first we will talk about different definitions of entrepreneurship, then we will have a global historical glance, then Indian historical perspective we will see, then we will talk about current scenario, then we will also include ethics and social responsibilities of an entrepreneur, and if time permit, we will have a glance at some of the successful entrepreneurs. So let us start with a very lighter side. Today we are very much under stress because of this COVID situation. So let us have a lighter side. I have put a conversation between a business person and a television interviewer. You can read this slide. The discussion was, what do you need to be a business person? Was the opening question the anchor of a television interview asked an eminent personality. Gosh, she heard, and though that her interview is going to be a spoil, for it was an answer so obvious and exhaustive that there was nothing else to talk. Or this is what she thought. The entrepreneur saved her day. Young lady, he continued, you seem to have got it wrong. What I meant was not CASH is equal to cash, but KASH is equal to cash. Interview was off to a flying start, and the interviewee went on to elaborate what he meant. KASH, that is knowledge, attitude, skill, and habits. So we are talking about entrepreneurs who are taking risks to make profit, but at the same time, we must know that they must have knowledge, attitude, skills, and then habits. Now, one definition we will consider to start with what is entrepreneur. According to Schumpeter, the entrepreneurship is essentially a creative activity or it is an innovative function. Entrepreneurship can be defined as a process of action an entrepreneur undertakes to establish his enterprise. That is, a purposeful activity to initiate and develop a profit-oriented business. That is, we have an entrepreneur, then entrepreneurship and enterprise. This is just like person, process, object, or you can talk about a statement that is having subject, verb, and object. That means when we have a person who has some intention, he undergoes a process of entrepreneurship, and what he establishes is the enterprise. So this is in short what we meant by entrepreneur, entrepreneurship, and enterprise. Now, what is entrepreneurship and why we are interested in it? Entrepreneurship is the immense strength and spirit of humanity which made possible the great geographical discoveries of the world. We find that whatever activities are taking place in the world, that is because of entrepreneurship only. By way of one reason or the other, the person has entrepreneurial quality, and therefore we find the geographical discoveries taking place in the world. Entrepreneurship is a vital activity to bring about changes in the economy and society, not only in a country but also in the world. So we find that all over the world, this is an activity that brings about changes in the economy. Then it causes the initiation of all types of human activity in the society. Whatever activity takes place in the human society, we find that it is either one way or other, it is an entrepreneurial activity. It affects all aspects of political, legal, socio-cultural, technological, economic, and demographical environment of life and society. Then we find that entrepreneurship is the pioneering force that connects the world societies with its activity of exchange from the early period of human history. If you look at the human history, we find that the force that is connecting the world and all the societies is nothing but the entrepreneurial quality of the people. It is a basic strength of business organizations too. The provocation of change towards future business prosperity is the result of the entrepreneurial zeal of the people. And therefore, entrepreneurship is a business discipline to learn for the student of business. That means we find that whatever activities are going on in the world, they have from one way or other an entrepreneurial quality in it. And therefore, every person who intends to go into any type of business must learn about the entrepreneurship. Now, let us talk about certain definitions given by experts on the entrepreneurship from different periods and find out what they mean and how the concept of entrepreneurship has changed from very most primitive periods to most forward periods. One such definition is entrepreneurship is any kind of innovative function that could have a bearing on the welfare of an entrepreneur. This is the definition given by Joseph A. Schumpeter. Now, in this definition, we find that Schumpeter recognizes entrepreneurship as a rewarding activity that involves any form of innovation. Innovation is doing things in a new and better way. It adds utility to existing operations or products. So, in view of Schumpeter, entrepreneurship is nothing but a reward for any innovation the person does. Now, innovation can be in the existing product, it can be in operations, it can be in the any type of resources, or it can be in the market, or it can also be in the organizational structure. Another definition provided by Robert K. Lamb states that entrepreneurship is that form of social decision making performed by economic innovators. Now, in this definition, Lamb describes entrepreneurship as an act of economic activity engaged in innovation. That means he adds the term economic in this, in the innovation, and he also points out the social orientation of entrepreneurship as it is involved with social and good welfare. That means not only the person involved in business who is the originator or creator of the business interested in earning profit, but also he looks about the economic activity to be performed and also sees whether it gives good to the social uh, society or the social, it talks about the social welfare. Now, another definition that is given by A.H. Cole is entrepreneurship is the purposeful activity of an individual or a group of associated individuals undertaken to initiate, maintain, or aggrandize profit by production or distribution of economic goods and services. If you see this definition by A.H. Cole, we find that it recognizes entrepreneurship as a deliberate human activity for earning profit. That means the purpose is profit earning, but through economic activities of production or distribution of goods and services. We can also find in this definition that it may be an individual or a group activity, but the central focus is profit making. That is, to initiate, maintain, or increase profit, entrepreneurship is undertaken. So, in this definition, we find that it is talking about the economic activities. That means the need of the society is being considered, and the activities which are necessary for the building up of the society is undertaken. At the same time, the increase in profit is also kept in mind by that entrepreneur. Another definition that is available is Robert Ronstadt. He says that entrepreneurship is the dynamic process of creating incremental wealth. That means he is talking about increase in the wealth. When a person has entrepreneurial quality or he is undertaking entrepreneurship, then he is going for the creation of the wealth. So he says that wealth is created by individuals who assume the major risks in terms of equity, time, or career commitment, or provide value for some product or service. That means the sole purpose here is creation of wealth, and for that he is utilizing his time, utilizing his equity and commitment. The product or service may or may not be new or unique, but the entrepreneur must somehow infuse value by receiving and locating the necessary skills and resources. So here we find that there is nothing as such mentioned here about the product or service, whether it is new or old, but there can be certain things which make the service available in such a fashion that it creates wealth. Now, another definition which is available is by Robert Hisrich and Michael P. Peters. As per these experts, the entrepreneurship is the process of creating something new with value by devoting the necessary time and effort, assuming the accompanying financial, psychic, and social risks, and receiving the resulting rewards of monetary and personal satisfaction and independence. So this is a quite elaborate definition. That means it is talking about the devoted efforts of individuals for creating something of value to the people of society. That means it is also considering the social aspect. That means the efforts are to make something valuable to the society, and they also believe that entrepreneurship is a rewarding activity. It gives not only financial rewards but also freedom and personal satisfaction. That means the person who is an entrepreneur will have freedom, personal satisfaction, and then immense reinforcement for the furtherance of entrepreneurial action. He can go on developing his entrepreneurial activities. Entrepreneurship, in their view, is also a risk-bearing activity, because when the resources are involved, there can be a risk about whether the business will succeed or not. Now, in this, we find three types of risks are involved with it. The one financial, second psychic, and third is social. Now, entrepreneurship takes these risks and devoted efforts to having rewards by giving mankind something of value. That means, on the one hand, the entrepreneur is trying to give something to the society, and on the other hand, he is trying to get benefits, that is, rewards in the form of monetary benefit. Therefore, entrepreneurship entails missionary efforts that involves risks to innovate something of value from which the entrepreneur will get financial and psychic rewards. Now, when we talk about entrepreneur, people may often get confused between who is an entrepreneur and who is a manager. So let us have a small line of demarcation in between how to distinguish an entrepreneur versus the manager. So we see that the key difference between an entrepreneur and a manager is their standing in the company, how they stand in the company. The first point is an entrepreneur is a visionary that converts an idea into a business. He is the owner of the business, so he bears all the financial and other risks. We find that entrepreneur is the creator. He has the vision to create an idea and from that idea he wants to come up into the business. So whatever risks are involved, he has to take the risks. Whereas a manager, on the other hand, is an employee. He works for a salary, so he does not have to bear any risk. That means he has to look upon the day-to-day activities, or you can say he is a paid person for certain work. He does not have any vision or any idea in the mind to create new ideas. Then the second point is the focus of an entrepreneur lies in starting the business and later expanding the business. He may start the business and then afterwards he can try to expand his business. Whereas a manager will focus on the day-to-day smooth functioning of the business. For an entrepreneur, the key motivation is the achievements. Whatever he achieves, he gets motivated, and time and again he tries to get more achievements because he is motivated to go further. But for the managers, the motivation comes from the power that comes with their position. Another point of difference is the reward for all the efforts of an entrepreneur is the profit he earns from the enterprise. Whatever he gets as a sort of profit is the reward that he can achieve. But the manager is an employee. So his remuneration is the salary he draws from the company. This means whatever payment he is being paid, he gets that much salary, and it does not depend upon his creative ideas, whatever he may have or not. He has to work daily and he will get the salary. The entrepreneur can be informal and casual in his role. However, a manager's approach to every problem is formal. So we find that entrepreneur by nature is a risk taker because he is creating new ideas, he is putting into the business and then seeing whether that takes off. And therefore, initially he has to take all the risks. He has to take calculated risks to drive the company further. On the other hand, a manager is risk averse. He does not have to take any risk. His job is to maintain the status quo of the company, so he cannot afford risk. So these were certain basic differences in between the entrepreneur and the manager. Then another term which comes when we talk about entrepreneur is intrapreneur. This is a new term. In the 90s, this was coined. American Heritage Dictionary acknowledged the popular use of this new word, that is intrapreneur, to mean a person within a large corporation who takes direct responsibility for turning an idea into a profitable finished product through assertive risk-taking and innovation. This intrapreneur, you can consider an analogy to intranet. Just as we have the internet and intranet, intranet means connecting all the terminals in a big organization. In the similar fashion, entrepreneur is the person who is within a large corporation. That means he is not the originator or the creator of the business, but he is one of the persons working in a large corporation, but he has that capability uh, because he is having certain ideas in his mind. So he is putting those ideas into form so as to get profitable finished product through assertive risk taking and innovation. That means he is part of the big corporation, but he is being given certain liberty so that he can think upon and provide certain possibilities that some ideas can again be made into form of the entrepreneur development. Now, certain points we will talk about the entrepreneur, why it is important, and also see that entrepreneurs are supported by big corporations. The first thing is they have unique characteristics. Out of those, we are talking about four unique characteristics. First one is entrepreneur do not fundamentally seek monetary benefits for themselves. That means just as entrepreneur is always talking about uh, the concern benefits or getting the rewards for his work, entrepreneur they do not talk about getting direct benefits. What they do is they do out of pure desire and passion. In big organizations, they have ideas in their mind and they can put those ideas in front of the management. They understand that their actions could potentially make them indispensable within the organization, basically. And the money will follow. Sorry. The passion comes first and then money follows. However, even the risk of not obtaining any monetary rewards is a risk worth confronting. So we find that they are not just working for monetary benefit, but they are within the organization, they have passion, they have drive to think, and therefore they are working. Second important quality of entrepreneurs are they are fearless when it comes to failure. They think of failure as a means of success, not a detriment to success. That means ideas generate in their mind over time and continue to cultivate until they somehow figure out how to transform thoughts into actionable plans and initiatives. If failure presents itself, entrepreneurs will create alternative solutions time and again. Here we find that they are fearless when it comes to failure because they are not running the complete business or they are not the creators of the business. So they are not afraid of the failure. So they can generate the idea in their mind and continue. The third important quality of entrepreneurs are they are not afraid of change. In fact, they desire it. They have an inner confidence and the courage to step out of the box and accept the successes and failures achieved simply because in their mind change is a constant necessity. Change becomes a norm for entrepreneurs and is seen as a welcome challenge. Now, generally, we find that within in organization or in the market, anywhere, when we uh, want to change certain systems or the principles, then we find that people are resistant to that change. For example, when computers were introduced way back in 1990s or 1985 or so, people were resisting it and they were thinking that it will be taking their jobs. So introduction of technology was considered as a change and people resisted change. Everywhere we find in history, People resist change, but entrepreneurs are those people, they want to have change. They are not afraid of that and they want to work in that change period. Another important quality is entrepreneurs possess characteristics of confidence and humility. They are authentic in their behavior and are characterized as those who are confident and secure in their decision making. However, they also have the humility to respect others. Their confident and selfless behavior affords them characteristics of authenticity and integrity that brings about genuine respect from others. Hence, the results of successfully motivating and retaining entrepreneurs will be increased organizational effectiveness, competitiveness, and innovation. This is something every organization desires. That means here we see that in a big organization, there are people who have positive approach, who have qualities, who can face challenges, who want change, and those people are part of the organization. If they are given proper support, then new innovations can come up and they can be successfully tapped by that organization. Now let us come to the history of entrepreneur emergence. If we go to the earliest period, we get one example. Marco Polo was a merchant of Venice, Italy. He was considered as a go-between. Now, go-between is a new word to us, but this is actually the translation of French word entrepreneur. So what he would do was he used to sign a contract with a money person to sell his goods. Today we have this term as venture capitalists. That means persons who simply put their capital for running a business. They don't have any know-how with them. They don't have any creative ideas with them or innovation. Just they provide the capital. So such concept was there. He was actually a trader and traveler. So he used to sell goods. So this was considered as earliest period when entrepreneurship originated. Now, in the Middle Ages, we find that the term entrepreneur was used to describe both an actor and a person who managed large production projects. That means the first method was to distinguish that entrepreneur in earlier days was he was considered as a trader. In the Middle Ages, we found that his role was different. He was either a person who managed large productions, he was considered as an entrepreneur. Large construction or production projects, especially the examples given for those ages was in the Middle Ages, the entrepreneur was like a cleric. He was a priest or a religious leader, especially a Christian or a Muslim one, who was in charge. That means he used to care and control of great architectural works such as castles, fortresses, public buildings, cathedrals, etc. So he was in charge of this, or he was a caretaker, and he was taking into account the construction as well as use of these big projects. So he was considered as an entrepreneur. In the 17th century, we find John Law, a Frenchman, was one of the entrepreneurs of this period who established Royal Bank. And this bank was an exclusive franchisee to form a trading company called Mississippi Company for trading between France and the New World. So we found that the entrepreneurial approach was going on changing for the passage of the periods. In 18th century, the person with capital was differentiated from the one who needed capital. That means just as we have today venture capitalists, those people who have capital solely for the purpose of providing it to the industrialists. In the similar fashion, this concept was there in the 18th century. That means the entrepreneur was distinguished from the capital provider. A person who has his own ideas, creations, new ideas, was considered as entrepreneur, but the person who was providing capital was different one. He was not considered as the entrepreneur. One of the reasons for this was the industrialization was taking place throughout the world. So we find um, Eli Whitney, who invented cotton ginning machine. He was an entrepreneur and an inventor, but he did not have his own capital to set up the industry. So he was a capital user. That means he raised the capital from other sources and it was not a capital provider. So he has original ideas, he has developed that machine. So he was considered as inventor and entrepreneur in 18th century. Then another person, scientist, Thomas Edison was an inventor in the field of electricity. He was also an entrepreneur, but he did not have his capital to start an industry. So we find that in the 18th century, the concept was a person who has original ideas, he was an inventor, he was considered as entrepreneur, but he does not have the capital. So both Edison and Whitney were capital users. They were entrepreneurs and not capital providers, as in today we call these as venture capitalists. During the 19th and 20th century, we find the entrepreneurs were frequently not distinguished from managers. That means earlier we have seen the difference between manager and entrepreneur. And we have said that manager was not considered an entrepreneur because he was not the creator of the ideas or the creator of the business. But in 19th and 20th century, late 19th and earlier 20th century, this was a concept that it was not distinguished between these two definitions. That is, manager and entrepreneur were slightly mixed. And therefore, we find a person, Andrew Carnegie, is one of the best examples as per this definition. He was from a poor Scottish family. He invented nothing, but that means, as per earlier definitions, he was not an inventor nor an entrepreneur. But he made the American steel industry one of the wonders of the industrial world just by his competitiveness rather than his inventiveness or creativity. That means he did not have any creativity, he did not invent anything, but he was one of the managers in that company and he took American steel industry to a very high level. Then in the middle of 20th century, the notion of an entrepreneur as innovator was established. That means the entrepreneur was considered as an innovator. Innovations in the input resources, materials, that is manufacturing methods, products, and organization was considered in the scope of entrepreneur. That means anywhere we can do changes or innovations, either in the materials, manufacturing methods, products, organization, etc. Everything was considered as innovation, and that who did that was considered as an entrepreneur. Then the concept of innovation and newness is an integral part of the entrepreneurship as per this and this notion. That means entrepreneur means he should have the innovative qualities as per this concept. And we find that it is one of the most difficult tasks for the entrepreneur because every time he cannot do experimentation and do innovation because he has to make the business stable also. And therefore, this becomes a difficult task. But we find that in history, the innovation has been a tradition. Ability to innovate can be observed throughout the history from the Egyptians who designed and built great pyramids out of the stone blocks weighing many tons each. to Apollo lunar module, to laser surgery, to wireless communication, and to this IT sector now. So we find that in world history, innovation has been a part of entrepreneurial activity. Now let us talk about the history of entrepreneurship in India. The history of entrepreneurship in India starts in the era of Indus Valley civilization, that is during the early Harappa period. We find that this age is also called as Copper Age, and in the Indus Valley civilization, that area showed ceramic similarities which were similar to southern Turkmenistan and northern Iran, which suggested considerable mobility and trade. That means here also we find that the trading was considered as an entrepreneurial activity because in the Harappan period there was trade taking place in between Iran, Turkmenistan, and this Harappan, that is Indus Valley civilization. So we find that trading activity was considered as an entrepreneurial activity during the earliest period. Then we find, apart from agriculture and hunting, the Indus people supported themselves by trading goods like exchange of potteries, ornaments, exchange of animals. So we find that exchange of goods was also considered as part of entrepreneurial activity. Then the earlier years, we find 1000 BC, 500 to 1000 BC, that is, Indian trader introduced re-exporting. This concept was brought by the Indian traders. What they do was export, bought silk from Chinese and sold to Central Asia. Then they bought horses from West Asians and sold to Chinese. That means they did re-exporting. So again, this activity was also considered a part of entrepreneurial activity. Then we find the Maurya era. In the modern times, the Mauryan era is remembered as one of the golden ages of Indian history because it was a time when the country was united and independent. In that period, there was vast territory and better trade. There was widespread use of metallic money. Missions were sent to Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, and there was increase in the trade. Also, we find that in those periods, people were divided into different categories or different groups, mainly seven endogamous groups, that is, there were philosophers, peasants, herdsmen, traders, soldiers, government officials, and councillors. So mostly trading was considered in this age also as a part of entrepreneurial activity. Then we find in Gupta era, traders formed associations to protect their interest. We find that when trading was at its climax, then associations were formed. Then in the Middle Ages, 700 to 1300 AD, we found that paper and printing were invented, the dams and roads were built, and therefore the trade was increased. Then came the Mughal age, in which we found that there was dominated world commerce. Large quantities of gold and silver were flown into the country. Then Mughal era second, we found that in that period, British arrived here. Then the person named Virji Bora, a Surat merchant, was one of the first entrepreneurs. Then came the colonial era. Europe was then the hotbed of technological innovation. The traders brought with them plenty of new ways of doing business. And because they have different opportunities, Indian businessmen became entrepreneurs. That means again, up till this period, we found that trading was basically the entrepreneurial activity. During the colonial era too, railways were set up. We found 1853 or so. Then 1853 railways were set up. Then Kowazi Nanabai Dawar started first cotton mill in Bombay. Then Sir J.N. Tata founded Jamshedpur Steel Works. Then foundations of jute mills were laid. Pharmaceutical industries were also set up. During this period, the major players were, that means those who were sort of entrepreneurs, were Ghanshyam Das Birla, Goenkas, Aithans, Jamshedji Bhai, Mafatlal, Gagal Bhai, Lakshman Rao Kirloskar, Walchand Hirachand, Nusarwanji Wadia, Firoz Shah Godrej, Gopal Krishnan, Singhania, Gujarlal Modi, and Lala Shriram. These were considered as major periods, players of in form of entrepreneurs during the colonial era too. In the colonial era 3, the change makers like J.R.D. Tata, M.S. Oberoi, Jamnalal Bajaj led the way for Indian entrepreneurs. And after independence, large scale industrialization entrepreneurs came into existence like Dhirubhai Ambani. Globalization started, and with it, the Premjis, the Narayan Murthis, the Rajesh Jains, they were all seen. During the last 68 years, and India has seen the entrepreneur evolve in different roles, right from trader to creator of the business. Now we find modern entrepreneurs are wealth creators, they are also communicators, they are change agents, and even they are entertainers. Now, after seeing the historical background, looking at a glance over the world and then at the Indian scenario, now let us see the current scenario. Uh, we find that there are ample opportunities for small businesses in India. Such opportunities will transform India in the coming future. And the Planning Commission has also prepared report to generate employment opportunities. And it is stated that for 10 crore people over the next 10 years, they have recommended self-employment as a way out for teaming unemployed youth. For increase in entrepreneurship, we found that there has to be certain support required, both at the governmental and societal level. Because when we want to set up employment facilities, then there must be some support from the government or from the societal level so that these new entrepreneurs can survive. And therefore, we will see what are the governmental and societal level efforts for improving the entrepreneurial activity. So we find under supporting organizations, we find the government has set up various organizations which specialize in industry promotion and entrepreneurship develop in different sectors. The organizations provide policy framework support in addition to training and financial aid. Some of these are, we already know this, just we are giving the list of the supporting organizations. We have Khadi and Village Industries Commission, we have Choir Board, Small Industries Development Bank of India, then National Marketing Competitiveness Council, then National Skill Development Corporations. These are certain organizations which the government has set up for the promotion of entrepreneurship. At the state level, we find across India, different states have set up especially focused organizations which work toward the development support and support of small scale industries. Whatever small industries are there, the states are supporting by way of these organizations. And these are state financial corporations, state industrial development corporations. So these corporations, they are helping in the form of financial aid. Then we find development support organizations. Government of India has set up various organizations that are the forefront in providing support and training for the budding entrepreneurs. Few of them are Central Footwear Training Institute, situated at Agra, Indo-German Tool Room at different places such as Ahmedabad, Aurangabad, Indore, Central Institute of Tool Design at Hyderabad, Central Tool Room, Ludhiana, Central Tool Room and Training Center, Bhubaneswar, then Circle Telecom Training Center, Kolkata, Indo-Danish Tool Room, Jamshedpur, then Institute of Design for Electrical Measuring Instruments, then Electronics Service and Training Center, Ramnagar, Fragrance and Flavor Development Center, Kannauj. These are some of the institutes which Government of India has set up to train and support the budding entrepreneurs. Then we find industry associations have also been set up. That is a variety of associations which help and encourage the cause of industry have been set up. These associations provide support and strength to the entrepreneurs and the organization they set up. Additionally, industry association networks are crucial in steering government policy and action as well. Such industry associations are National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, Laghu Udyog Bharti, then Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Confederation of Indian Industry, Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry of India, Federation of Indian Micro and Small and Medium Enterprises, World Association for Small and Medium Enterprises, then India Trade Promotion Organization. Similarly, Technology Innovation Management and Entrepreneurship Information Service, then Asian and Pacific Center for Transfer of Technology. So these are the industry associations. That means we find that in current scenario, government of India as well as the state governments, they are trying their best so that the entrepreneurs are coming up. Now, up till now, we have seen the historical background and the present scenario, the support that is given by different state governments and state governments. Now, another concept we want to see with the entrepreneurs is there has to be certain ethics and social responsibility of entrepreneurs. We have been talking about the entrepreneur as a person who is striving for rewards through his creative or innovative activities. In other words, in a few other definitions we have seen, he is working for the increase of wealth. That means he is always concerned about earning money. But we find that when we simply talk about money with no morals and ethics, then that business will not survive. So whatever entrepreneurial activity is there, there has to be certain ethics and social responsibilities to be followed. So let us see what are the ethics and social responsibilities of entrepreneurs. Now, at the outset, we say that a set of moral principles that govern decisions and actions are ethics. That means we have certain morals. For example, every individual knows that telling lie is bad, or deceiving a person is bad, or not keeping the words. That means whatever promise one has done, to break that promise is not good. Likewise, there are different morals, and when we govern our decisions with the set of moral principles, these are ethics. To act ethically is to behave in a way that is keeping with certain values. That means we have our own values. Whatever we feel good with, we must be also comfortable to apply to others. Now, universal values are the values that are shared by all cultures throughout the history. We find that values are there right from the times immemorial up to the current age. And therefore, everybody has his own culture and his own values. Now, business ethics are moral principles applied to business issues and actions. Therefore, we find that whenever an entrepreneur enters into a business, entrepreneurs have considerable influence on their company's business ethics. So, simply working for earning the profit will not be profitable in the long run. Now, why to practice business ethics? The simple answer is because it is the right thing to do. That means whenever we have an enterprise, we will be having the customers, and to satisfy customers will be the basic thing. Whatever you produce is for the customers, but there has to be certain ethics. Means once you make a promise, once you make a contract, you have to provide the things as per the contract. Now, we find in today's age, mostly because there is online purchase and everything is getting online today, customers are more confident when buying goods and services from ethical company. I have purposely given this example, that is for online purchase. We find number of companies are in the market: Amazon, Nykaa, Flipkart, etc. My personal experience is I found that different companies are very good. For example, Amazon, Nykaa, Flipkart. But one company I could not get proper dealing with it. That is Snapdeal. I had a bad experience with that. I had ordered one book from Snapdeal, and on their own they were unable to supply that book, so they cancelled that order. And it was prepaid order. I had already paid money for that. And when I demanded back money, then initially they said that the amount will be deposited in your account within few days, 7 days or so. After that, again when I called, again they said it will take 1 more week. Again it was said to talk to the higher authorities. When I talked to other authorities, they said it takes time. We have already refunded and it will be deposited in your account. Again, so 1 month, 2 month passed, and then when again I called, then they said that we have already deposited in your account. You show me your passbook. You send your passbook xerox so that we can verify. That means they were not in a position to pay back the amount. And when I read the comments of that, I found that most of the people said that this company is not uh, keeping word with the customers. So the thing is, simply earning money is not the motive. It should not be the motive of an entrepreneur. Now, therefore, we say that ethical workplace motivates the employees. Now, if such a situation prevails, employees also get demotivated when the people are not working in an ethical fashion. And we find that whichever company follows ethical behavior, they work on proper morals, there will be very little legal problems. So we can say that ethical behavior prevents legal problems. Now, establishing an ethical workplace is very essential. Universal values establish a strong foundation for society and are also good for running a business. Today, we find that to avoid unethical behavior, companies are trying to keep transparency or openness everywhere so that they can keep the person accountable. You can find who is accountable for that fault. For transparency, we find we are using most of the companies today. They are using social media. electronic forms of communication such as blogs and message boards. So we find that everything is becoming transparent, and therefore, because of this, the companies can get develop a goodwill among the customers. There are certain ethical issues for entrepreneurs. Sometimes we find that people come into the business and they take the product of others. They just modify or even they duplicate it and they sell in the market. So that nature should be avoided. We must be following our own values and ethics. So when faced with an ethical decision, it is best way to rely on one's own personal values to help guide his own response. That means whatever we feel good for ourselves, we must also make it available for others. That means something which I feel better for me should be thought of as good for others. Then, for this, we have to keep into mind certain uh, rules. One is intellectual property is artistic and industrial creations of the mind. That means when we have an artistic article or industrial creation, then it is from a particular person's mind and it should be respected. Copyright is the exclusive right to perform, display, copy, or distribute an artistic work. This also must be kept into mind that it is the right of a person to display, copy, or distribute an artistic work. We should not copy another's work because it has a copyright approach. And a patent is the exclusive right to make or use or sell a device or process. This also we must take into mind. If a person has patent, then we should not steal it or we should not use it in a way without the permission of that person. These are all the aspects which we consider because we don't want to have more legal issues. If we encroach these personal rights, then there will be legal issues. Similarly, a trademark is a symbol which indicates that the use of a brand or brand name is legally protected and cannot be used by others. So if we keep all these points in mind, then an entrepreneur can be fully successful because he keeps all the confidentiality. That means he respects the privacy of others. So this must be the nature of an entrepreneur, so that he is just not interested in making money by any other means. Sorry. Then, when we talk about the entrepreneurs, as in many definitions, we have seen that there is a social issue also attached with the entrepreneurs. So, there is another term called social responsibility. Now, we actually see that person who is an entrepreneur, he is using all the resources which are coming from the society only. That is, when he is using the land, building the land premises, he is using the material which is coming from the society. Then he is using labor, again comes from the society. Environment associated with it is again a social aspect. So we find that for his raw material, for the labor, for the product, everything he has to take from the society. That means the social environment consists of the people the plants, the environment, etc. So when he starts an enterprise, a person who is entrepreneur and starts an enterprise, he has to have a balance in between the profit and growth with the good of the society. That means he should not just talk about the profit and should not close his eyes from the benefit to the society. So this is a term which is related to the society and the profit making. That means good of the society must be considered while you are making the profit. CSR often translates into profits. That means how corporate social responsibility turns it into profit, because this advantage for business is sometimes described as doing well by doing good. That means when you are doing good of others, definitely there will be good of yours. That means when you are considering your enterprise as working in between a society, then you have to think about different factors. You have to think about the customers, you have to think about your own employees, you have to think about the environment and all. That means you are a social related enterprise. Now, one type of socially responsible corporate behavior is ethical sourcing, which means buying from suppliers who provide safe working conditions and respect workers' rights. Now, what we call social responsibility as the social obligation on the entrepreneur that he should look for the benefit of the society. And the corporate social responsibility means big organizations or big concerns, they should have a social obligation on them about the society. So, socially responsible corporate behavior is you buy from suppliers who provide safe working conditions and respect workers. That means you are honoring the rights of the workers as well as you are providing safe working conditions. See, we are taking every resource from the society. For example, raw material we are taking from the society, the labor we are taking from the society, and we are providing it to the customers. So, if we do not consider the good of the society, then the business will not last longer. For example, if we use the resources without proper care or without considering the social aspect, that means we are exploiting the resources in a way we want and we are not considering its preservation. For example, way back we found that people have lots of gold with them. Every person was having kilos of gold during the golden era or golden age. But we find that nowadays people are unable to buy gold because gold has been exploited to such an extent that it has gone out and people are unable to get that precious metal. Similarly, petrol or other resources, if we are using it in such a fashion that one day it is going to get exhausted, so we have to think in such a fashion that we must keep a balance between the social aspects as well as our business. So one type of socially responsible corporate behavior in ethical sourcing, we call it as ethical sourcing, which means buying from suppliers who provide safe working conditions and respect to workers. That means a company which is taking proper care for the right of the workers and also providing safe working conditions, we can call this as ethical sourcing. Now, when we talk about the entrepreneurs, there has to be some responsibility to the individuals. And as such, this corporate social responsibility affects employees, customers, investors, and creditors. That means you have to think about the employees, you have to think about the customers, you have to think about investors, and creditors. Now, entrepreneurs have a legal obligations to provide a safe workplace and fair employment policies. Safe working place means the conditions must be proper so that proper protection can be given to the employees. Hazards, etc., should be avoided. The conditions, if the resources or products are hazardous, proper working conditions must be provided, and employment policies must also be fair. That means the leave must be provided properly, the working conditions must be given, bonus, etc., or payment must be given in time. So these are employment policies. Now, business owners are bound by law to treat customers fairly. That means whoever owns the business, it is by law essential that they must treat their customers fairly. For example, whatever is being sold as a product, the details must be shown or depicted on the product. And the products must not be sold by force, but there must be a choice. The customers themselves must be in a position to select which product is good and which product is bad. There should not be any force. Similarly, acting responsibly towards suppliers or vendors results in making the best choices of materials and using them wisely. Means selecting the vendors and suppliers in a proper fashion, depending upon their quality of material, terms and conditions, etc. Then investors and creditors provide money to start and run business. We have seen that in different periods, we differentiated the entrepreneurs from the money providers. So we find that there are certain investors and creditors who provide money to start the business. So they should believe in both the things. That means the idea behind the business and the entrepreneur. Simply, they should not think about getting returns for the profit. That means they are putting in money, so they want money back. So that should not be the case, but they should consider the idea behind the business and the entrepreneur. Both must be respected. Then there is responsibility of the entrepreneurs to the environment. That means they should think about the sustainable development. That means the product meet the planet's current needs while preserving resources for future generations. That means first thing is they should not use the resources irresponsibly. That means the input resources should be used with proper care and with proper genuinity, so that the resources do not go waste. That means this will help in preserving the resources. Sustainable development means the social climatic effect should also be maintained. Another is alternative energy. Researchers are working to make fossil fuel alternatives such as solar, wind, hydrogen power more efficient. So we must come up with alternatives. As we have seen, one of the definitions of entrepreneur is he is innovator. So he must think about using the alternative sources for energy. Instead of fossil fuels, he must switch on to solar or wind or hydrogen power for more efficient results and also saving these fossil fuels. Then, in terms of organics, people are interested more in organics today. They don't want to get harmed by the inorganic materials. So, there should be a proper segment. Just as we have organic foods, grains, and meat, which make up a small but steady growing segment of the market in the food market. The trade must be fair. It is a way of doing business based on principles of social and environmental responsibility and promoting sustainable growth. Fair trade means whatever you are selling must be as per the policy of the business, that is, whatever material you are selling, the contents must be displayed properly. It is your social responsibility. Also, using proper resources is the environmental responsibility so that you are maintaining the environmental health. The material or the products, the details of that must be shown so that fair social approach is maintained. That means a customer is interested in knowing what are the contents of the product. For example, some people are not using non-vegetarian items. So they want all the details to be depicted on the cover of the product, which can show that all the vegetable contents are there in it. So those who are vegetarian, they can use that product, and that will be a fair deal when we are talking about the social responsibility. To the community as a whole, the businesses must support disadvantaged and needy people either for financial gain or because it is the right thing to do so. Now, as we have seen that business or entrepreneurial activity is not just for hoarding money or earning money without considering the social aspects, because we are working in the society and therefore the entrepreneur or a businessman has to see the requirement of the society. He must think about giving something to the society, because whatever he is earning is because of the social factors. As we have earlier listed, the raw material is from the society, the labor is from the society, the fuel, etc., is from the society. So we must think about the environmental development also. And therefore, those people who are supporting the businesses must also be considered. For example, we have seen here that we must support the needy people or support the disadvantaged people. For example, when a big corporation is there, they should think about free medical aid or free health services to the people in the society. That way, they can make their business more advantageous. For example, we have taken one case, that is cause-related marketing. That means it is a partnership between a business and a non-profit group for the benefit of both. Now, this approach is going on today because many big corporates, they are having a memorandum of understanding with different non-profit groups, and non-profit groups, they are working in the societal health services. So when there is a partnership between a big business concern and a non-profit group, then both will be benefited. That means the increase of sales for the business will be there, and it will be raising money and awareness for the non-profit group of organization. That means big businesses, when they have memorandum of understanding with the non-profit groups, which we call as NGOs, then it will be supporting those NGOs which will be working for the society, and the benefit will be the sale of that corporate will increase, and it will be creating more awareness about that non-profit organization. There is another way of supporting to the community, that is sponsorship. That is when business sponsors a community event or a service in exchange for advertising. For example, big businesses, they can sponsor community events, they can arrange big cultural festivals or religious festivals, and in that they can put that advertising. So this will be a sort of support to the society. Then another concept is philanthropy. That is, it occurs when business leaders donate money and other resources for socially beneficial causes. We find that big business leaders, they donate money for building of religious places, and with that, even big hospitals are built up by philanthropy in the form of business leaders. So that will create a good social environment. That means that company will also be recognized, and the company will be in a position to give proper social services to the people. Up till now, we have seen whatever was considered in our topic, that is entrepreneurs, definitions. Then we have seen the historical background, that is world historical perspective, Indian historical perspective. Then we have seen entrepreneurs, difference in between entrepreneur, intrapreneur, manager. Then we have seen ethical issues. Then we have talked about the responsibility of community, responsibility to the community by the entrepreneurs. Now let us talk about some successful Indian entrepreneurs. Already we know this, but because this session is for making the teachers aware how we can inculcate the concept of entrepreneurship in the students, therefore we must show the examples with us. One such successful entrepreneur is Dhirubhai Ambani. All we are knowing, he is an Indian businessman, started out humbly by selling traditional snacks to religious pilgrims. His business grew soon, and he expanded and diversified into different industries, including telecommunications, power generation, information technology, consumer goods, logistics, etc. And today we find Reliance Industries is India's largest private company and is listed on the Fortune 500. Ambani's sons now run Reliance and are some of India's wealthiest people. Mukesh Ambani, worth 51.78 billion. Anil Ambani used to be the sixth richest person in the world, now worth an estimated $109 billion. Another successful entrepreneur is Ratanji Dadabhai Tata, RD Tata we call, JRD Tata. Was born in Paris to Indian parents and French parents. He was trained as an aviator in Europe and later became India's first commercial airline pilot. And then afterwards, he started Tata Group. He set out his own and built Tata Airlines, which ultimately became the modern Air India. Then we find by the time of JRD Tata's death, Tata owned nearly 100 different businesses across many industries. Notably, his automobile venture, Tata Motors, produces economical automobiles that nearly all working Indians can afford to own. JRD Tata is descended from Jamshedji Tata, who founded the Tata Group of companies. This concept, that is economical, we find that this is very important in the development of the entrepreneurs. That means we have to see that the customers get value for their money and the goods are economical. So we find that Tata Motors, all vehicles, they are cheap and they are cost effective. So this is the genius behind the entrepreneur's approach. Then Narayan Murthy, Indian entrepreneur who co-founded IT giant Infosys with an initial investment of just rupees 10,000 $100 today, few $100. Now with a net worth of 2.1 billion, he is often referred to as father of Indian IT industry. Serving as CEO of Infosys from 81 to 2002, then its chairman up to 2011, and as of April 20, Infosys has a market capitalization of around $37 billion. Another Indian entrepreneur successful one is Shiv Nadar. He is the founder of HCL Infosys in 1976 with an investment of just few $1,000. He used to sell calculators and microcomputers. Then soon expanded to Singapore and the Far East, generating over 1 million rupees in sales, not long after its expansion. HCL has continued to grow, making Nadar a billionaire worth $12.4 billion. And another person, steel man, we call Lakshmi Mittal, an Indian entrepreneur who began his career working for his father's steel business. Later, he set out on his own and created what is now one of the biggest steel makers in the world. That is ArcelorMittal. As of April 20, ArcelorMittal has a capital market of over $10 billion. Mittal himself is worth nearly $9 billion. Another person is Ghanshyam Das Birla, known as Indian businessman who started his first company in 1900s operating a cotton and textile mill. Birla's businesses also include significant paper and sugar production. By the time he died, Birla Group was a multi-sector global conglomerate. Grandson Kumar Mangalam Birla now runs the company and owns a net worth of $7.2 billion. Then we have another entrepreneur, Dilip Sangvi, Sun Pharmaceuticals. In 1992, with a meager 10,000 rupee investment, he started. And as a son of pharmaceutical distributor, Sangvi knew what he was doing. Today, through gradual development and a series of acquisitions, that investment has grown to a value of nearly 2 trillion rupees, making Sun India's largest pharmaceutical company. Today, Sangvi has a net worth of around 7.7 billion. Another successful entrepreneur is Azim Premji, worth an estimated $6 billion, former chairman of Wipro Industries, diversified software technology company that many have compared to Microsoft. Premji is sometimes referred to as India's Bill Gates as a result, alongside his informal title as Czar of the Indian IT industry. So this was the story of few successful entrepreneurs. So with today's lecture, I have tried to give you a precise view of entrepreneurs, global history, Indian history, then social ethics required for the entrepreneurs. Then also we have seen social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and then we have seen some successful entrepreneurs. I hope I have justified the topic. If you have any questions, you can mail at engineerkadri@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You have given a very elaborate presentation on this topic, and at the very start of this session, the foundation of this FDP has been set. Sir, you have pointed out very good points and we have noted it down. I hope all the participants have had ears to Kadri sir's presentation. I would like to hand over to Tadvi Pathan sir for further instructions and next session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, on the behalf of Government Polytechnic Hingoli, I would like to give thanks to Dr. Khadri sir for being a part of this faculty development program and for in accepting our invitation for being an expert for this particular session. Thank you very much, sir. You have
Thank you.
elaborated this session very well. You have justified this session very well.
I have acted as an opening batsman for your FDP.
Thank you very much, sir. And
Okay.
you have scored a very good score for this particular session.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
If any participants have any questions, please ask here on this particular stage. We have our expert with this time. If anyone have any question, please. Okay, fine. Hope that you have understood all the things. So we will end here.
It was actually only a historical perspective, so there might not be any questions because only I have tried to give the basic inputs regarding the entrepreneur.
Correct.
And I hope all the faculty must have followed. And this is on the basis of what we should do for our students. This is actually faculty development of how they should go for presentation of entrepreneurship. Hope I have done my job well.
Correct, sir. It's really appreciable.
Okay,
so we will end our session here, and after immediate 15 to 20 minutes, we will have another session with Dr. Utpal Ganatra on entrepreneurship is not an activity but a mindset. So thank you all, and thank you once again, Dr. Khadri sir.
Okay, thank you.
End the session here. Okay, thank you. And
Okay, thank you.
in chat box we will have attendance link. So mark your attendance for this particular session in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.